All right, thank you guys for coming. My name is Eugene Rwagasore. I'm a co-founder and CTO at Pindo. And I really want to bring your attention to the potential and the power of AI, mainly focusing on voice AI and how that kind of empower underserved communities in Africa. So Pindo, just briefly to give you an overview, Pindo is a cloud communication platform that we started in Rwanda, and we started scaling in East African countries. So our main business previously was just providing text-based communication to institutions, the liking of banks, NGOs, anyone who want to engage with people. We would provide the automated cloud communication to them. But as we were going through that, we started realizing a common pattern whereby there are a group of people who are being totally excluded. So when you look at the African continent, mainly sub-Saharan Africa, you find that there is people who have limited literacy, and those people are automatically excluded from digital services. So when you look at that demography, it's not that they don't have purchasing power, because there are those who, they are the farmers who send their children to school. So they are being excluded because of almost kind of intent to just ignore them because of they're maybe not important in the big scheme of the company. So if you look at the bank, they come, they install their mobile application, they have iOS, Android, but what about those people who doesn't have access to internet? What about those people who don't know how to read nor to write? What about those people who don't have digital literacy? When you see in Africa, you see some people actually who have smartphones, and if their children has installed an app on their phone, let's say WhatsApp, which is the most popular, then if anything goes wrong, they are blocked out. They have to wait for their kid to come back and install them. So that's a digital literacy. So a combination of that kind of build up, and we find ourselves excluding a big portion of Africans from accessing and benefiting from digital services. And we thought that this is unfair, but when you look at kind of some of the domain, like when you look at healthcare, like everyone's supposed to access healthcare. So we have this digital health, we have people who are sending SMSs to people, like women who are pregnant. They have to, if they don't read the SMS, what will happen to them? So we started seeing the pattern in agriculture, the education that is happening in agriculture. People are being excluded because they cannot read, they cannot write, they don't have digital literacy, or they don't have access to internet. So all those solutions are being tailored, but on the other side, kind of excluding people. Another example is government services. So there are existing solutions. That means that people are not trying, they are. But what are they using? So if you use smartphone, you're already excluding everyone who doesn't have access to internet. If you are using text, you are excluding people who cannot read nor write. But there is a common kind of factor, a common ground where we can meet, because everyone speak their native language. And that's where Pindo come in. So the existing solutions are either difficult. So for example, if you are an NGO and you are deploying people to go to do an outreach in a rural area, you have to deploy a fleet of cars with data collectors on there. They will have to sleep in the hotels, and then they will have to climb the mountains to go door by door to reach people. So that's difficult and expensive. Some are inaccessible. So if you decide to take care of your Android users and your iOS users, you already are losing people who don't use smartphones. So that's really, you are building a solution, but you're making it not accessible to all the people. So another is kind of USSD, which is very popular, right? We all use M-Pesa or any mobile money payment systems. It's USSD based. So first of all, you delay a few seconds, your session will expire on you, so you have to restart from scratch. Secondly, it's tedious process. So those solutions, even though they are there, and even though we are using them, is still proven to be difficult. So, but voice as a tool, or spoken word in general, it's something that everyone has. Now, if you deploy your solution in English and you are in Kenya, then that's a problem as well. So what we are up to here is to make sure that we use the tool that people are familiar with, which is like speaking, and then we allow organizations to be able to leverage those tooling so that they can communicate to their marginalized or people who doesn't have access otherwise. So that's where we come in. So we have Pindo AI. We associate it with a phone call. So mobile penetration is really high, not compared to internet penetration. Only mobile penetration is really, really high on the continent. So a combination of this, that's where the magic is. So if we can communicate to people in their native language, and then call them on their handset, and then engage with them, collect data from them, and then kind of bring the data back, and you can do some metrics and business intelligence on it. I think this is where the magic lies. So when we say Pindo Voice AI or Pindo AI in general, what do we really mean? So we have text-to-speech, which is what any organization will not, they will not record themselves. They will write things. They can create a questionnaire or a survey. And that is text-based, that need to be translated into speech. Because remember, we are trying to talk to people, not sending message to them. So that is the text-to-speech. So the speech-to-text is when they reply. Because you are calling someone, they are replying based on questions that you already have prepared. How do you engage back? When they engage back, how do you deal with their voice? So you take their voice, you transcribe it to text, and then you store it as information. So those two are the pillar of kind of the process of onboarding people. But what we are aiming for in the near future is specialized large language models. So specialized large language models, so when everyone knows GPT, ChatGPT, but it's kind of englobing all knowledge. But what we want to do is, let's say you are an organization, you have information stored in your files, in your books, things that you have. So if you manage to dump into our language model, then that language model will become specialized in your domain. So let's say someone who is dealing with agriculture in fertilizers. You're selling fertilizers, but you have many information based on the soil, the geolocation, everything that goes with that, you have it. So if you onboard them on our large language model, eventually it becomes accessible so that instead of calling with a pre-programmed set of instruction, people can engage freely. So that's where we are going. But what we want is a smooth transition. Because you cannot go, someone has invested in USSD, they have invested in their current workflow, and think they will just drop it and jump. So there is a transition process, and that's where we say like, what if we just move USSD? So these are kind of those things that anyone who did mobile money, you already done USSD or Safari M-Pesa. So you already done USSD. So now we want to migrate the USSD from voice, from text to voice. so that then it becomes easier and accessible to everyone. So some specific domains that we think that are very, very critical. So it's government services. So if you are government official or a government in general, you need to serve all your people. So this is going to serve them, and all those USSD services that they have onboarded, they have on now, they should migrate to voice-based so that we can include everyone. So this is one important use case. Another important use case is mainly in agriculture training. So the farmers are the most marginalized people on the continent, and they still need training or access to information so that they can excel in what they do. And the difference between a farmer with information and a farmer without is the outcome of their yield. So with few information, if they manage to access information, we believe they will be empowered and actually improve themselves and their families. So the third is healthcare. So, you know, on the continent, we have community health workers. So in one of the companies that I worked in called Medic Mobile, which is operating in Kenya as well, we were trying to access and empower community health workers. Those are untrained nurses, and then send them in the field and give them a phone which will empower them. So if a woman is pregnant, 6 months pregnant, there's specific protocol they have to follow. So, and all those instructions we were giving them on a text. So it's very, very limited. So with healthcare, we think with our conversation engine whereby you can define the protocol of a given disease or a given treatment, then anyone can follow it up and go through it with the community health worker or without, because now you have access to the last person. So we believe these are the main, but there are more. So there are many more use cases that voice AI will unlock on the continent, will include more people. And what we have as a mission at Pindo is that with Pindo, you can build a conversation, a formula, a questionnaire, a survey once and deploy everywhere. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I would give the floor for questions. Any questions? Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Check. Okay. Yeah, my name's Mike Nimurukundo. You talked about the large language models that you're going to be building and integrating in, and how you would put together that data. What is the timeline for that? And then I looked at your, what is this called, a brochure or something, talking about doing it in Kinyarwanda. Are there any plans to do it in other languages like Swahili and others, so that even here in Kenya, people can be able to benefit from it? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. So yeah, so good questions. So the first, we start with the last. So we started in Rwanda, but we are already looking for the papers to start operating here. So our intent is to start with Kinyarwanda, which we are already, and then start training for Swahili. So Swahili is really the big language in East Africa, which is spoken by 200 million of people. So it's really, really key, and we are planning to start it the upcoming quarter. So that's April. Now, the large language models. So large language models needs kind of getting data. So what we are looking at now is engaging with the organization which has that problem and try to gather their data and see how their data are organized, and then try to give them kind of a protocol on how to prepare their data in-house so that when time comes, we can gather them. But in terms of the timeline for Pindo, it's the end of the year. So that's when we will have it. By then, we have it in Swahili and in Kinyarwanda, but we intend to scale to other languages like Luganda. And our main focus is basically East Africa, and then after that, we can start scaling beyond East Africa.
Thank you. Anna Nelson, I work in software development and the ethics of AI. Human intervention is obviously very critical. And when you're dealing with sort of marginalized communities and complex languages and even dialects, what's your approach to ensuring human intervention throughout sort of creation, implementation, and review?
Good question. So whenever an organization is using our services, our platform, we give them a way out, because like you can start with AI, but end with a person on a phone call. So when like an organization define a survey, let's say they're following up on who is using fertilizer A, B, and C, and then you see someone that is not really satisfied. So we give the organization using our platform a way out to connect to a person. It can be direct connection. It can be a follow-up in a couple of hours, or we give them a way so that they can connect eventually with a real person, because sometimes there are limitations, there are misunderstanding based on the dialect as well. So in terms of identifying, because even though we say Swahili in Kenya is different from Swahili in Tanzania, compared to Uganda, compared to other countries that are using Swahili. But what we are doing is like the language or the dialect has a unique ID we associate with, in a way that based on how you speak, we identify it and channel you through a voice AI that is closely resembled to your voice, so that there is that element. So the other element that we are doing is an organization, for example, let's say we have one voice, and that voice is doing, let's say, gaming and betting, someone is using it, and then that very same voice go in healthcare, it will be problematic. So what we are enabling organizations to do is to bring their voice. Let's say they have someone in-house, and they say, like, we want to associate this voice with our interactions. And that voice, we clone it in a way that it will be the one that will be speaking on behalf of that organization. So we try to merge the gap so that it gets close to it. But eventually it's not, and when it's not, and when people are not satisfied, we will translate from the AI to the real life person in-house. Yes. Yeah.
Edgar, founder, Humanity Amplified. We're basically doing the same thing where you put your own corpus and you can communicate with it, but on WhatsApp. So my question is, why would you need to do LLMs when you could have a vector that then use OpenAI models? Yeah, which is far more cheaper and easy, and you can get a translation in real time. You don't have to have a timeline of next year for Swahili when you can have it right now. So why would you want to go your own route on that?
Good question. So there's a combination of two things in your question. So one is that when we started even doing our Kinyarwanda version, it's out of relatively frustration, because look, when you look at English, French, those languages, they are already taken care of, right? But the problem is that when you say, like, I want to help people who speak my language, and then you see, like, if you wait for someone to build it for you or like provide something that will help you, you will wait a little bit longer. So our intention is to build things in-house and really tailor it to our market. So obviously we are open to see the new development because every week there's a new thing happening in AI, right? So we are open to kind of explore those avenues. If there's an advancement that happens, we grab it and we use it for the benefit, because one of the challenges to operate over telephony is that if there is any sort of delay on the phone call, it becomes bizarre. So as we work, we say, like, what is the latest trend that is helping people to reduce the latency on a call? Because it has to feel natural. So in a sense, we are open to any path that we think can give us advantage. So we are not close to that. But when we started even building the Kinyarwanda version, and we intend to build the Swahili version, is with intent to make sure that we are not waiting for the OpenAI of the world, of the Google of the world, whereby we actually have kind of something that is equalizing. So look, when you look at the trends that have happening, they always happen there, and we kind of import them. So, but there is a slight chance where we can be participating actors in this time. And that's what we are aiming for, and that's what we hope you guys do as well. Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
How do you ensure that at the end of the follow-through, the call from the requester, that your LLM was right?
Good question. So one, the LLM will make, like, hallucinations, everything that are happening. So what we do with people is to enable those organizations to, those organizations to define the boundaries. So as you see, we don't want the transition to be kind of abrupt, because that is not healthy for anyone. So the first process is like, why don't you start with defining the logic? And then once you define the logic, now we know what to pick. Because if you ask about the age, and then whatever you reply is not age, we will know that this was not successful. And then we will opt in to say, like, why? And then try to see the correction that may happen. So as this transition happens, and as we learn through those transitions, we are going to apply to large language models as well. So there are many, many ways that you can try to monitor. But we think with this transition that we are aiming for, to take first from voice a USSD command to voice commands, and then eventually to a full-blown conversation, there is many steps, obviously, we have to go through, but we believe that when there is a problem, eventually the person who are engaging, the organization who is using, they have a follow-up mechanism whereby they can know, like, were you satisfied? That's the simplest. Or go through the core, kind of do some metrics in random sample of the people who are engaging with our language model.